The blood on her wrist was still wet when the Vampire King found her. Vivian Zhao pressed her palm against the gash, stumbling through the narrow alley behind the club where she worked as a bartender. Her vision blurred at the edges, not from blood loss, but from the memory of what she'd just witnessed. The creature that had attacked her wasn't human. Couldn't be human. Its eyes had glowed amber in the darkness, its movements too fast to track, and when it had grabbed her arm, its grip had been cold as death itself. She'd managed to spray it with the pepper spray she kept in her purse, more out of instinct than logic, and somehow that had bought her enough time to run. But now she was lost in the maze of back streets in the warehouse district, her phone dead in her pocket, and she could hear footsteps behind her. Slow, deliberate, confident. "Running won't help you, little human." The voice was silk and venom combined. "I can smell your blood from here. Such sweetness, such purity. You'll fetch an excellent price at the auction." Auction. The word made her stomach turn. Vivian grabbed a metal pipe leaning against a dumpster, spinning around to face her pursuer. The creature stepped into the pale moonlight, and she saw it clearly now. Pale skin, almost luminescent, hair the color of dirty snow, eyes that reflected light like an animal's, beautiful and terrible all at once. "Stay back," she said, hating how her voice trembled. "The vampire, because that's what it had to be. What else could it be?" laughed. "You think that will stop me? I am Salvatore, and I have been hunting your kind for 3 centuries. You are nothing but—" He never finished the sentence. One moment he was standing there, smug and certain. The next, he was on the ground, and someone else stood where he had been. Someone taller, broader, with hair like fresh snow and eyes the color of winter ice. The newcomer wore a black suit that probably cost more than Viviane's yearly rent, and he had his hand wrapped around Salvatore's throat, lifting him off the ground, as if he weighed nothing at all. "You dare hunt in my city without permission?" The new vampire's voice was different, colder. It carried weight, authority that made the air itself feel heavier. "You dare mark prey that belongs under my protection?" Lord Theron," Salvatore choked out. "I didn't know the auction, I was told." "You were told wrong." Theron, apparently that was his name, tightened his grip. "There is no auction in my territory. There has never been an auction in my territory, and this woman is under my protection as a citizen of this city, whether she knows it or not." Vivian watched, unable to look away, as Theron threw Salvatore against the brick wall hard enough to crack the mortar. The other vampire crumpled to the ground, and before he could recover, Theron was there, moving with impossible speed. "Leave my city. If I see you again, I will not be merciful." Salvatore vanished into the shadows, and then Vivian was alone with the Vampire King, because that's what he had to be. The way the other one had cowered, the way he carried himself like he owned not just the city, but the very night itself. He turned to her, and she raised the pipe higher, even though her arms shook. "I won't hurt you," he said, and his voice was softer now, though no less powerful. "You're injured. Let me see." "Stay away from me." She backed up until her shoulders hit the wall. "I don't care if you saved me. You're one of them." Something flickered across his face, not anger, something else. Something that looked almost like hurt, though that seemed impossible. "I am. But I am not like Salvatore. I am Theron Wraith, and I am the king of this territory. Every human who lives here, works here, breathes here, they are under my protection. That includes you." Protection. She laughed, and it came out bitter and broken. Right, because kidnapping humans for auctions sounds really protective. That is not my law. That is the work of rogues, outcasts, criminals who operate in the shadows. He took a step closer, and she noticed he moved slowly now, telegraphing his movements, trying not to scare her. "The wound on your arm needs attention. I can smell the venom in your blood." "Venom?" "Salvatore's bite carries paralytic properties. In an hour, perhaps less, you won't be able to move. In 3 hours, your heart will stop." He extended his hand. "I can help you. My estate is 5 minutes from here. I have the antidote." Vivian looked at his hand, then at his face. His features were sharp, aristocratic, inhumanly perfect, but his eyes, those winter ice eyes, held something she hadn't expected. Genuine concern, maybe even fear. "Why should I trust you?" "Because if I wanted to hurt you, you would already be hurt." He kept his hand extended. "Because you have no other choice. And because I am asking you to trust me, not commanding it. You still have your free will, Vivian Zhao. You can refuse and die in this alley, or you can come with me and live. How do you know my name? Your driver's license. I could see it through your purse. He tilted his head slightly. I make it my business to know everyone in my territory, but I confess I hadn't made your formal acquaintance until tonight. An oversight I intend to correct. The pain in her arm was getting worse, spreading up toward her shoulder. Vivian looked at the pipe in her hand, then at Theron's still extended palm. She thought about her apartment, her cat, her classes at the university where she was pursuing her master's degree in art history. She thought about the thesis she hadn't finished, the trip to Paris she'd been saving for, all the mundane dreams that suddenly felt impossibly precious. She dropped the pipe. It clattered against the concrete. Okay. His fingers closed around hers, gentle despite their obvious strength. His skin was cool, but not unpleasant. Hold on to me. What do you... The world blurred. Wind rushed past her face, and then they were somewhere else entirely. Vivian's knees buckled, and Theron caught her, lifting her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. She wanted to protest, but her head was spinning too badly. Where are we? My home. She blinked and looked around. They were standing in an enormous entrance hall that looked like it belonged in a European palace. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings on the walls that she recognized even through her dizziness originals had to be from the Renaissance period. A grand staircase curved upward into darkness. This is insane, she whispered. This is my reality. Theron carried her toward a door to the left. And now, temporarily, it is yours as well. The room he took her to looked like a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, a fireplace with flames already burning. He set her down carefully on a sofa, then moved to a cabinet in the corner. When he returned, he held a small crystal vial filled with silver liquid. Drink this, all of it. Vivian took the vial with shaking hands. What is it? Vampire blood, mine specifically mixed with certain herbs. He knelt beside the sofa, bringing himself to her eye level. It will counteract the venom and heal the wound. You have my word it will do nothing else. Vampire blood. She stared at the vial. I'm about to drink vampire blood. Or die. I understand the choice is not ideal. She met his eyes again. That same concern. That same genuine worry. Against every instinct screaming at her to refuse, Vivian brought the vial to her lips and drank. The liquid tasted like metal and winter, cold all the way down. But within seconds, the pain in her arm began to fade. The fog in her head cleared. She looked down and watched the gash on her wrist close, the skin knitting itself together until only a faint pink line remained. Oh my God! Not quite, Theron allowed himself a small smile. But I have been called many things over the centuries. Vivian set the empty vial on the side table with trembling fingers. This is real. All of it. Vampires are real. Yes. And you're their king. In this territory, yes. There are others across the world, each ruling their own domain. He settled into a chair across from her, somehow making the position look regal. We have existed alongside humanity for millennia. Most of your kind never know we're here. That is by design. But some of you, like that Salvatore, you hurt people. Some of us do. His expression hardened. Just as some humans hurt others, my laws forbid hunting without consent, forbid killing, forbid the kind of criminal enterprise Salvatore was engaged in. But I cannot be everywhere at once, and there are always those who believe themselves above the law. Vivian pulled her knees up to her chest, trying to process everything. An hour ago, she'd been pouring drinks and chatting with regulars. Now she was sitting in a vampire mansion drinking blood from a crystal vial. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow, when you're stronger, I will have my people take you home. You will go back to your life. Just like that? Just like that. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Though I will assign someone to watch over you, at least for a time. Salvatore mentioned an auction. That means there are others involved, and they may come looking for you. Why me? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. His voice was firm. And as for why, I don't know yet. But I intend to find out. He stood, moving toward the door. There are guest rooms upstairs. I'll show you. Wait. Vivian got to her feet, surprised to find her legs steady. You saved my life twice now. Why? Theron turned back to her, and for a long moment, he simply looked at her. really looked as if he were memorizing every detail of her face. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you were in danger in my territory and I am responsible for the safety of all who reside here. And because, he paused, because when I saw you in that alley, saw your courage even in the face of death, I felt something I have not felt in a very long time. What? The desire to protect, not out of duty, but out of something more. He shook his head slightly, as if surprised by his own admission. Get some rest, Vivian. We will speak more tomorrow. He left before she could respond, the door closing softly behind him. Vivian stood alone in the study, surrounded by centuries of history and luxury, and tried to make sense of anything that had happened tonight. She should be terrified, should be looking for a way to escape. But instead, she found herself staring at the door where Theron had vanished, thinking about the way he'd knelt beside her, the gentleness in his hands despite their obvious strength, the genuine emotion in his voice when he'd spoken about protection. A vampire king who protected humans, who seemed to actually care about their welfare, who looked at her like she was something precious. Sleep, she told herself firmly. She needed sleep, and then tomorrow, in the daylight, all of this would make more sense. Or at least she'd be able to think clearly enough to figure out what to do next. A soft knock on the door startled her from her thoughts. It opened to reveal a woman with the same pale skin and white hair as Theron, though her eyes were gray instead of ice blue. She wore a simple black dress and carried a knowing smile. I'm Seraphine, she said, Lord Theron's second in command. I'll show you to your room and bring you some clothes. Human clothes, she added, seeing Vivian's expression. We keep a variety of sizes for situations like this. Does this happen often, humans staying here? No, Seraphine's smile widened. In fact, you're the first in over a century, which makes you very interesting indeed. Come. Vivian followed her up the grand staircase and down a corridor lined with more paintings and tapestries that probably belonged in museums. The guest room Seraphine showed her to was larger than Vivian's entire apartment, with a 4-poster bed, an ensuite bathroom, and windows that overlooked what appeared to be extensive gardens. There's a lock on the inside of the door, Seraphine said. Not that you'll need it. No one will disturb you without permission. Lord Theron is very particular about consent and boundaries. He seems very particular about a lot of things. He is. Seraphine moved to a wardrobe and began pulling out clothes. He's been king of this territory for 300 years. Before that, he was a prince in the old country. He takes his responsibilities seriously, perhaps too seriously sometimes. It's rare to see him engaged. Engaged? Interested. Present. Seraphine laid out pajamas on the bed, then turned to face Vivian. He cares about the humans in his territory, but from a distance, abstractly. Tonight, he didn't just save you. He brought you here, gave you his own blood for the antidote. That's not abstract. That's personal. Vivian sat down on the edge of the bed, her mind reeling again. I don't understand any of this. Neither does he, I suspect. Seraphine moved toward the door. But I've known Theron for 200 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you when he carried you inside. So perhaps you don't need to understand yet. Perhaps you just need to rest and see what tomorrow brings. After Seraphine left, Vivian changed into the pajama silk, naturally, and climbed into the absurdly comfortable bed. She should be panicking, should be planning her escape. But exhaustion pulled at her, the kind that came after adrenaline crashed, and the body demanded rest. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of ice-blue eyes and a voice promising protection. When she woke, sunlight streamed through the windows, and for a disorienting moment, Vivian thought she'd dreamed everything. Then she saw the silk pajamas, the opulent room, and the tray of food sitting on the bedside table that definitely hadn't been there when she fell asleep. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee that smelled divine, and a note written in elegant script. Eat. You need your strength. I will come find you when you're ready. Tea. Vivian ate mechanically, tasting nothing, her mind already racing ahead. She needed to go home. Needed to check on her cat, call her advisor, pretend everything was normal. But was anything normal anymore? She'd learned vampires were real, been attacked by one, saved by another, and now she was sitting in a mansion eating breakfast brought by an immortal king. After eating, she showered in the bathroom, which had a tub that could fit 4 people, and water pressure that felt like heaven, and found fresh clothes waiting when she emerged. Jeans that fit perfectly, a soft sweater, even undergarments in her exact size. She tried not to think too hard about how they'd known. She was pulling on socks when someone knocked. "Come in," she called, expecting Seraphine. Theron entered instead, and Vivione's breath caught. In the darkness of the alley and the confusion of last night, she hadn't fully appreciated his appearance. Now, in daylight, or as close to daylight as seemed to reach into this room, she saw him clearly. He wore dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, somehow managing to look both casual and regal. His white hair was pulled back from his face, revealing those striking features and those impossible eyes. He was beautiful, dangerously, inhumanly beautiful. "You slept well?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." She stood, suddenly self-conscious. "And thank you for the clothes and breakfast. And, saving my life." "You don't need to thank me for that." He stayed near the door, maintaining distance. "How do you feel?" "Good." "Great, actually. No pain at all." She looked down at her wrist where only the faintest pink line remained. "Your blood really works." "Vampire blood has many properties: healing, strength, speed temporarily." He paused. "Bonding, if taken repeatedly over time." "Bonding?" "A connection between vampire and human. It's rare, and it requires consent from both parties. I tell you this only so you understand you have no reason to fear. One drink will not bind you to me in any way." Vivian processed that, filed it away with all the other impossible information. "What happens now?" "I'd hoped you would allow me to take you on a tour of the estate. There are things you should know about my world if you're going to understand the danger you may still be in." He finally moved closer, though he stopped several feet away. "And truthfully, I would like to know you better. You were brave last night. Most humans would have collapsed in terror." "I was terrified." "But you picked up a weapon anyway. You stood your ground." Something that might have been admiration flickered in his eyes. "That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes the line between them is thin." He gestured toward the door. "Will you walk with me?" She should say no, should demand to go home immediately. But curiosity won out, the same curiosity that had led her to study art history, to spend hours in museums studying the works of long-dead masters. Theron was history, living history. And despite everything, she wanted to understand. Okay. He led her through the mansion, and it was even more impressive in daylight. The paintings she'd glimpsed last night were indeed originals she recognized. A Caravaggio, a Vermeer, a sketch that looked suspiciously like a lost Da Vinci. The architecture itself was a blend of different periods, as if the building had grown and adapted over centuries. "How old is this place?" she asked. "The foundation was laid in 1673. I've added to it over the years." They walked through a gallery lined with portraits. "My family, mostly. Some allies. Others I've lost." Vivian stopped in front of a portrait of a woman with kind eyes and dark hair. "Your wife?" "My sister. She died 200 years ago. Not all vampires are immortal. We can be killed." His voice held old grief. "She was murdered by a rival faction, a political move to weaken my claim to this territory. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." But the pain in his voice suggested time didn't heal all wounds, not even for immortals. "She would have liked you, I think. She always believed humans and vampires could coexist peacefully. She died trying to broker a treaty with one of the human hunter families." "Hunter families?" "Yes. There are humans who know of our existence and dedicate themselves to killing us." He continued walking. "Most are zealots, but some have legitimate grievances. We are predators, after all. We need blood to survive. The relationship between our species has always been complicated. They emerged into the gardens, and Vivian gasped. It was like stepping into a different world. Roses bloomed despite it being late autumn, their scent heavy in the air. Stone paths wound between carefully manicured hedges and flower beds. A fountain burbled in the center, the water catching the light. "It's beautiful." "It's spelled." Theron guided her toward a bench beneath an arbor covered in white roses. "A witch I once helped maintains it for me. The flowers bloom year-round, and the temperature is always perfect. A small indulgence." They sat, and for a moment neither spoke. Vivian studied the roses, trying to organize her thoughts into coherent questions. There were so many she didn't know where to start. Why did Salvatore mention an auction? She finally asked. Why me specifically? That's what I'm investigating. My people are questioning contacts throughout the underground. He turned slightly to face her. Can you think of any reason someone might target you? Any unusual encounters recently? Anyone paying too much attention to you? Vivian ran through the past few weeks in her mind. Work at the bar, classes, the library. Nothing stood out. No, I'm boring. I work, I study, I go home to my cat, that's it. You're not boring. He said it with such certainty that she looked up, surprised. You're studying art history? How did you know that? I may have looked into your background after bringing you here. I wanted to understand who I was protecting. He didn't look apologetic. You're working on a thesis about Renaissance art and the symbolism of blood in religious paintings. Yes. She felt exposed, but also curious. Does that mean something to you? It might. Blood magic has been used throughout history, often recorded in art by those who knew what to look for. Some of those paintings you're studying were created by vampires, or under vampire patronage. The symbolism isn't just religious, it's a record of our world, hidden in plain sight. Vivian's academic mind latched onto that immediately. Which paintings? Which artists? Many. I could show you my collection, if you'd like. I have several pieces that never made it into public museums. He smiled slightly. Perks of being immortal. You acquire interesting possessions. That would be... She stopped herself. No, I need to go home. I need to feed my cat and check in with my advisor and pretend everything is normal. Of course, but he looked disappointed. I'll have a car take you, and I'll assign guards, discreet ones. You won't see them, but they'll ensure you're safe. I don't want to be watched. Would you prefer to be dead? His voice sharpened slightly. Salvatore is still out there. The people behind this auction are still out there. Until I understand what's happening, you are in danger. Please, Vivian, let me protect you. The way he said her name sent an unexpected shiver through her. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the genuine worry etched in his perfect features. He barely knew her, had no reason to care beyond general responsibility for his territory. But he clearly did care, and that both confused and intrigued her. Fine, but they stay outside. I'm not having vampires watching me in my apartment. Agreed. He stood, offering his hand to help her up. She took it, and again, that coolness of his skin, that surprising gentleness. Come, we'll get you home. The car turned out to be a black luxury sedan with tinted windows and a driver who wore sunglasses despite the overcast day. Theron didn't come with her, but he stood on the steps of his mansion watching as the car pulled away, and Vivian found herself looking back until he vanished from sight. Her apartment felt impossibly small and mundane after the grandeur of the estate. Her cat, Mr. Darcy, yowled his displeasure at her absence, and she spent 10 minutes apologizing and refilling his food bowl. Everything looked the same. Her second-hand furniture, her stacks of art books, the half-finished thesis on her laptop. But nothing felt the same. She knew too much now. Had seen too much. Vivian tried to work on her thesis, but the words blurred together. She kept thinking about what Theron had said, that some of the paintings she was studying had been created by vampires. Which ones? What symbolism had she missed? Were there messages hidden in brushstrokes and color choices that she'd never even considered? Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Hello? Vivian. It was Theron's voice, and something in her chest tightened. I wanted to ensure you arrived safely. I did, I'm fine. Good, and I have information about last night. His tone shifted, becoming more serious. My people found Salvatore. He's been dealt with. Dealt with? Executed. He broke fundamental laws of this territory. There are no second chances for that. No remorse in his voice. Just fact. But before he died, he confirmed that there is indeed an auction being organized. A group of rogue vampires are planning to kidnap humans with specific bloodlines for sale to the highest bidder. Bloodlines. Rare blood types that have certain properties valuable to vampires. Enhanced healing, stronger bonds, increased power. Your blood is one of those types. Vivian sat down heavily. How do you know? I could taste it when I gave you the antidote. Your blood is extremely rare, perhaps 1 in 10 million humans carry it. To most vampires, you would be considered a prize. He paused. They will come for you again. Then what do I do? Hide forever? No, you stay close to me. His voice was firm. The auction is in 3 days. My sources say it's happening in the old warehouse district by the docks. I'm going to shut it down and eliminate everyone involved. But until then, you are not safe on your own. You want me to come back to the estate? Yes. No. She stood, pacing her tiny living room. I have a life. I have classes and work and responsibilities. I can't just disappear. You can if you want to survive. Frustration bled into his tone. Vivian, please be reasonable. These are not civilized individuals. They will take you, sell you, and you will spend the rest of your life as someone's property. Is your pride worth that? It's not about pride. It's about... She stopped, trying to articulate what she felt. It's about control. My whole life I've had to fight for every bit of independence. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through undergrad. I'm the first person in my family to go to graduate school. Everything I have, I earned myself. And now you're asking me to give that up and trust you a vampire I met less than 24 hours ago with my entire life? Silence on the other end. Then, you're right. I apologize. I'm not accustomed to being refused, and I forget that protection can feel like imprisonment. His voice softened. What if I came to you instead? What? I can't be out during the day, but at night I could stay close. Guard you personally. You maintain your life, your independence, and I ensure your safety. A compromise. It was a compromise, and despite herself, despite every logical reason to refuse, Vivian found the idea of seeing him again didn't fill her with dread. Quite the opposite. Okay, she heard herself say, but you stay outside, and you don't interfere with my life unless there's actual danger. Agreed. I'll be there after sunset. He hung up and Vivian stared at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. A vampire king as her personal bodyguard. This was insane, all of it. But when the sun set and she heard a soft knock on her door, when she opened it to find Theron standing there in dark clothes with those ice-blue eyes locked on her face, insanity didn't seem like such a bad thing. May I come in? He asked formally. I thought you were staying outside. I will if you prefer, but it would be easier to protect you if I could see the entrances. He waited, patient. I need your permission to enter. Old magic. Vampires cannot cross thresholds without invitation. Another piece of lore clicking into place. Vivian stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in. He entered, and somehow her already small apartment felt even smaller with him in it. He dominated the space without trying, his presence filling every corner. Mr. Darcy emerged from the bedroom, took one look at Theron, and hissed. Your familiar doesn't approve of me, Theron observed. He doesn't approve of anyone. But Vivian picked up the cat anyway, scratching behind his ears until he settled. Make yourself comfortable, I guess. I need to finish some work. Of course. Pretend I'm not here. That proved impossible. Vivian tried to focus on her thesis, but she was intensely aware of Theron's presence. He moved around her apartment with quiet curiosity, studying her bookshelves, pausing at the prints she'd hung on the walls, cheap reproductions of famous works, but she'd chosen them carefully. You have good taste, he said, stopping in front of a print of Caravaggio's The Taking of Christ. This one is particularly interesting. It's one of my favorites, the use of light and shadow, the drama of the moment. She swiveled in her chair to face him. Why is it particularly interesting to you? Because I knew Caravaggio, briefly. He painted in Rome while I was visiting in the early 1600s. Temperamental man. Brilliant, but violent. He killed someone in a bar fight, did you know that? Yes. He fled Rome and died in exile. Vivian set down her pen. You actually knew him? I knew many artists over the centuries, patronized some, protected others. He turned to face her. That's what I was offering earlier. If you'd like to see my collection, study the pieces I've preserved, I would be honored to show you. Not tonight, he added quickly, but after this is resolved, when you're safe. You keep saying when, not if. Because there is no if. I will keep you safe. Vivian. That is not negotiable. The absolute certainty in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it was reassuring. She worked for another hour while he stood watch, dividing his attention between the windows and the door. It should have been uncomfortable having someone watch her, but instead, she found his presence strangely calming. Safe. Around midnight, she finally closed her laptop and stretched. I should sleep. I have class in the morning. Of course. I'll remain here if you don't mind. You're not going to sleep? Vampires don't sleep the way humans do. We rest, but we remain aware. I'll keep watch. Vivian wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at her. There's blankets in the hall closet if you get cold. I don't get cold. But something soft entered his expression. Thank you for the consideration. She retreated to her bedroom, leaving the door slightly ajar in case something happened. As she changed into pajamas and climbed into bed, she could hear Theron moving quietly in the living room. The sounds were soothing, somehow. Evidence she wasn't alone. Sleep came easier than expected. She woke to find sunlight streaming through her window and the apartment silent. For a moment, she wondered if she'd dreamed Theron's presence, but when she emerged from her bedroom, she found a note on her kitchen counter in that same elegant script. You sleep peacefully. It's lovely to witness. I'll return at sunset. Stay alert. T. Something warm unfurled in her chest. She pressed the note to her chest briefly, then forced herself to focus on the day ahead. Classes passed in a blur. She couldn't concentrate on lectures about iconography and symbolism when she had a living source of historical knowledge promising to show her his private collection. Her advisor noticed her distraction during their meeting, but attributed it to stress about the thesis deadline. If only it were that simple. Work at the bar that evening felt surreal. She mixed drinks and chatted with customers while hyper-aware of every shadow, every stranger who entered. Theron had said his guards were watching, but she saw no evidence of them. Maybe that was the point. Her shift ended at 11, and she walked out the back entrance to find Theron waiting for her. He leaned against the wall in the same spot where she'd first seen him, and the parallel wasn't lost on either of them. Dramatic, she said, trying for levity. I thought the symbolism was appropriate. He pushed off the wall, falling into step beside her. How was your day? Weird. Normal and weird at the same time. She pulled her jacket tighter against the autumn chill. It's hard to focus on school when I know people want to kidnap me. 2 more days. After the auction is shut down, the immediate threat will be eliminated. And then what? You said my blood is rare. Won't there always be vampires who want it? Perhaps. He was quiet for a moment. But they would have to go through me to get it, and I am not easily overcome. They walked in silence for a while, the city quiet around them. Vivian found herself stealing glances at Theron, studying his profile in the streetlight. He looked like he belonged in a painting himself, all sharp lines and dramatic shadows. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything? Why do you care so much? About me specifically? You said you protect everyone in your territory, but this feels different. He stopped walking, and she stopped too, turning to face him. The street was empty, just the two of them and the distant sound of traffic. I've been asking myself the same question, he admitted. I've been king for 3 centuries. I've protected countless humans. But I've never felt like this need to keep someone safe that goes beyond duty or law. He took a step closer. When I saw you in that alley, saw you standing there with your pathetic weapon, refusing to submit even in the face of certain death, something in me recognized something in you. Courage, strength, a refusal to be a victim. I was terrified, but you stood anyway. That's the difference between cowardice and bravery, not the absence of fear, but action despite it. His hand rose as if to touch her face, then fell back to his side. And then I brought you to my home, and you looked at my paintings with such genuine appreciation. You asked intelligent questions. You treated me like a person, not a monster. No one has done that in a very long time. Vivian's heart pounded. I don't think you're a monster. You should. I've killed more people than you can imagine. I've made decisions that cost lives. I am exactly what your species should fear. But you're also standing here protecting me? You executed someone for breaking your laws. You maintain order so humans can live safely without even knowing you exist. She took her own step closer, closing the distance between them. Maybe you're both, monster and protector. Maybe that's what makes you a king. Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, pleasure, heat. Vivian. A sound shattered the moment, breaking glass, a shout, and then movement in the shadows. Theron moved so fast Vivian barely saw it, placing himself between her and the threat. 3 vampires emerged from the darkness, all with that same pale skin and predatory grace. "Lord Theron," the one in front said mockingly, "we were hoping to find you here. Makes this so much easier." "Stand down, Marcus. You know the law." Theron's voice was deadly calm. "This human is under my protection. We know. That's why we're here." Marcus smiled, revealing fangs. "The auction organizers are very interested in her, and they're offering a substantial reward for anyone who can deliver her, enough to make breaking your precious laws worthwhile." "You would betray your king for money?" "You're not our king. You're a relic clinging to outdated rules." Marcus gestured, and the other 2 vampires spread out, flanking them. "We want freedom. The right to hunt, to feed, to take what we want. Your protection laws make us weak." "They make us civilized." Theron's hands flexed at his sides. "Last chance. Walk away." "No, I don't think we will." They attacked simultaneously, and Vivian screamed, but Theron was ready. He moved like lightning, catching the first vampire by the throat and throwing him into a brick wall with bone-shattering force. The second lunged at him, and they collided in a blur of motion too fast to follow. Marcus came for Vivian. She ran, but he was faster, catching her arm and spinning her around. His grip was iron, his eyes glowing in the darkness. "You're coming with us." "No." She drove her knee up, catching him in the stomach. It was like hitting concrete. Her knee exploded in pain, but he loosened his grip enough for her to break free. She didn't get far. Marcus grabbed her again, but then Theron was there. His hand wrapped around Marcus's skull. There was a sickening crack, and Marcus dropped, dead before he hit the ground. The other 2 vampires lay motionless nearby. Theron turned to Vivian, his eyes wild, his breathing ragged despite not needing to breathe. "Are you hurt?" "My knee, but I'm okay." She was shaking, adrenaline making her hands tremble. "Are they dead?" "Yes." No remorse. They chose their path. He moved toward her, and this time when his hand rose to her face, he didn't stop. His fingers brushed her cheek, cool and gentle, and she found herself leaning into the touch. "This is escalating faster than I anticipated," he said quietly. "They're getting bold, desperate. The auction must be tomorrow, not in 2 days. What do we do? We move you to the estate. Now. It's the only place I can guarantee your safety." He searched her face. "Please don't argue. Not about this." She didn't. The fight had scared her more than she wanted to admit, and the idea of going back to her empty apartment while more vampires hunted her held no appeal. "Okay, but I need to get Mr. Darcy." Something like relief crossed his features. "Of course. We'll stop at your apartment, get your cat and anything else you need, and then I'm taking you home." Home. He said it like he meant it, like his estate was already home to her. And the strange thing was, Vivian didn't correct him. They moved quickly, Theron keeping her close as they returned to her apartment. She threw clothes and toiletries into a bag while he stood guard, then scooped up Mr. Darcy and his necessities. The cat yowled in protest, but settled in his carrier. "Ready?" Theron asked, "as I'll ever be." This time, he didn't wait for a car. He simply lifted her into his arms bag, cat carrier and all, and moved. The world blurred again, at impossible speed, and within minutes they were back at the estate. Seraphine met them at the door, her expression grave. "My lord, we have information about the auction." "Tell me," Theron set Vivian down carefully. "It's tomorrow night, as you suspected. The warehouse district, Dock 17. At least 30 vampires involved, maybe more. They're expecting to auction off a dozen humans with rare bloodlines." She glanced at Vivian. She was to be the premium lot. They'd been tracking her for weeks. Vivian felt sick. "Weeks?" "I'm sorry," Seraphine said. "We didn't know until Salvatore mentioned it. They were very careful." "Tomorrow night." Theron's jaw tightened. "Then we hit them before the auction starts. Seraphine, gather our most trusted fighters. I want every entrance covered, no one escapes, and send word to the other human protection organizations. Let them coordinate extraction of the captives." "Already done," Seraphine smiled grimly. "We'll burn them out of existence." After Seraphine left, Theron turned to Vivian. She'd set down Mr. Darcy's carrier, and the cat was exploring his luxurious new surroundings with suspicious sniffs. "You should rest," Theron said. "Tomorrow will be difficult." "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. They've been hunting me for weeks. I have a right to see this through." She crossed her arms. And before you go all protective and dominant, remember what you said about control and consent. This is my life. My choice. He stared at her for a long moment, a muscle working in his jaw. You could die. I could die hiding here too if something goes wrong. At least this way, I'm not helpless. You will stay behind me at all times. You will follow my orders without question. And if I tell you to run, you run. Agreed? Agreed. He exhaled slowly, and she realized he'd been holding his breath, an unnecessary affectation he maintained out of habit. You're going to be the death of me, and I'm already dead. Despite everything, she smiled. Too bad. You're stuck with me now. Something softened in his expression. Yes, I believe I am. He showed her back to the guest room she'd used before, and this time, the familiarity was comforting. She set up Mr. Darcy's things, and the cat immediately claimed the enormous bed as his own, stretching out across the pillows with regal entitlement. He has excellent taste, Theron observed from the doorway. He's a snob. He's going to be insufferable after living like this. She turned to face him. Thank you. For everything. For saving me, for protecting me, for listening when I argued instead of just commanding. You deserve to be heard, to have choices. He stepped into the room, and the space between them felt charged. Vivian, there's something I need to tell you about tomorrow. What? If something happens to me, don't. If something happens, he continued firmly, Seraphine will protect you. She has orders to get you out and keep you hidden until it's safe. You'll be provided for. Protected. I don't want to hear this. You need to. He moved closer. I'm going to be fighting tomorrow, really fighting, against vampires who want me dead and want you captured. There's a chance I won't survive. Then don't go. Send someone else. You're the king delegate. I can't. They broke my laws, threatened my territory, threatened you. His voice dropped. And I need to be the one to end this, to ensure you're safe. Vivian closed the distance between them, stopping just inches away. Why does it matter so much? Why do I matter so much to you? Because in 300 years, I have never felt this way about anyone. The words seemed torn from him. Because when I look at you, I see more than just someone to protect. I see someone I want to know, to understand, to keep close, not out of duty, but out of desire. And that terrifies me more than any fight tomorrow could. Her breath caught. Theron, I know it's impossible. I know I have no right to feel this way. You're human. I'm a vampire. You have a life, a future. I'm a relic from another age. But knowing all of that doesn't change what I feel. He reached up, cupping her face with both hands. You've turned my world upside down in 2 days, Vivian Zhao, and I find I don't want it to turn back. She should step away, should put distance between them, but instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. No heartbeat beneath her palms, he was undead, after all, but solid and real and present. I don't understand this either, she whispered. I should be terrified of you, should be running. But all I can think about is that tomorrow you're going to fight, and you might not come back, and I'll never get to know what this could be. What do you want it to be? I don't know, but I want to find out. He bent slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. When his lips met hers, they were cool but gentle, questioning rather than demanding. Vivian rose on her toes, kissing him back, and felt him make a sound low in his throat. One of his hands slid into her hair, while the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, still controlled but with an edge of desperation beneath it, like he was memorizing the taste of her, the feel of her, storing it away against tomorrow's uncertainties. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard him from emotion rather than need, Theron rested his forehead against hers. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said quietly, know that meeting you has been worth any price I might pay. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. We both are. Yes. But he didn't sound convinced. He kissed her forehead, then stepped back. Sleep. I'll be close if you need anything. After he left, Vivian sat on the bed, fingers pressed to her lips, trying to process what had just happened. She'd kissed a vampire king, had told him she wanted to see where this impossible attraction led, had agreed to walk into danger tomorrow because hiding felt like cowardice. Her old life felt like it belonged to a different person, someone who worried about thesis deadlines and rent payments. This person worried about vampire auctions and whether the immortal king she was falling for would survive the night. She didn't sleep well, despite the comfortable bed and Mr. Darcy's purring presence. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the fight in the street, saw Theron moving with lethal grace, saw what tomorrow might bring. When dawn finally came, she gave up and showered, emerging to find clothes laid out again, practical this time. Dark pants and a shirt that wouldn't restrict movement. Someone had thought about what she might need for tonight. Theron found her in the library after breakfast. He looked tired, which seemed wrong for a vampire, but she supposed even immortals could be worn down by stress. "Are you ready?" he asked. "No, but I'm going anyway." He almost smiled. "That's the spirit I've come to expect from you." He gestured to the table where a small knife lay. "Take this. It's silver, which can hurt vampires. I hope you won't need it, but better to be prepared." Vivian picked up the knife, testing its weight. "Have you been planning this assault all morning?" "All night. Seraphine and I have coordinated with every allied faction in the territory. We'll have 40 fighters against their 30, and we'll have the element of surprise. The odds are in our favor. But not guaranteed. Nothing ever is." He moved to the window, looking out at the gardens. "Vivian, if things go wrong—" "They won't. But if they do, I need you to promise me something." "What?" He turned to face her. "Don't try to save me. Don't sacrifice yourself for me. If it comes down to a choice, you run. You survive. Promise me." "I can't promise that." "Vivian." "No." She set down the knife and crossed to him. "You don't get to ask me to abandon you. If we're doing this together, we face it together. That's the deal." Frustration, and something warmer warred in his expression. "You're impossible. You like it." "I do." He pulled her close, holding her against his chest. "I really do." They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Then Seraphine knocked on the doorframe. "My lord, it's time." The warehouse was exactly as grim as Vivian had imagined. Crumbling brick, broken windows, the smell of salt and decay from the nearby docks. They approached from multiple directions, Theron's forces moving with coordinated silence. Vivian stayed close to Theron, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. He'd insisted she wear a vest beneath her shirt, not bulletproof, but blade-proof, and now she was grateful for the added protection. They gathered in the shadows outside the main entrance. Theron made hand signals, and vampires melted away to cover the other exits. Then he looked at Vivian. "Last chance to stay outside." "Not happening." He nodded once, then kicked in the door. The warehouse interior was lit by harsh overhead lights, illuminating a scene from a nightmare. Cages lined one wall, and Vivian could see humans inside them, at least a dozen, all looking terrified. In the center, a makeshift stage had been erected, and vampires milled about, clearly preparing for the auction to begin. They all turned at the sound of the door crashing open. "Theron Wraith," one of them said, a female vampire with blood-red lips. "How predictable. Come to ruin our business?" "Come to end it," Theron's voice carried through the space. "Release the humans and surrender, and I'll make your deaths quick." She laughed. "Always so noble. That's why you'll lose, Theron. You and your rules, your protection laws, your outdated honor. The world is changing. Humans are cattle, and it's time we stopped pretending otherwise." "Then you've chosen your fate." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Vampires clashed in a blur of motion too fast for Vivian's human eyes to follow. She pressed back against the wall near the door, clutching her silver knife, trying to track Theron in the melee. He fought like something elemental, taking on multiple opponents at once, his movements deadly and precise. Seraphine appeared beside Vivian. "Come, we're getting the humans out." They ran toward the cages while the fight raged around them. Seraphine ripped the locks off with her bare hands, and Vivian helped the captives out, urging them toward the exits where Theron's people waited to escort them to safety. A vampire appeared in front of them, blocking their path. Male, young-looking, with wild eyes. "Where do you think you're going?" Seraphine moved to intercept, but he was fast, ducking under her guard and lunging at Vivian. She reacted on instinct, bringing up the silver knife. It sank into his shoulder, and he screamed, the sound inhuman and terrible. Seraphine finished him off while Vivian stared at the blood on her knife, feeling sick. No time for shock, Seraphine said firmly. Keep moving. They got the last human out just as the tide of battle shifted. Theron's forces were winning. Vivian could see it in the way the enemy vampires fell back, their numbers dwindling. The female vampire who'd spoken before tried to flee, but Theron caught her, his hand closing around her throat. You organized this. You put these people at risk. His voice was death itself. Any last words? This isn't over. Others will. He snapped her neck before she could finish. The remaining enemy vampires were either dead or fleeing, and Theron let them go. His people didn't pursue. It was over. Vivian sagged against the wall, adrenaline crash hitting her all at once. Theron was at her side in an instant, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes scanning her for injury. Are you hurt? No. Shaken, but not hurt. She looked up at him. You're covered in blood. None of it mine. He pulled her into his arms and she clung to him, letting the reality of what had just happened wash over her. They'd done it. They'd stopped the auction, freed the captives, survived. It's over, she whispered against his chest. The auction is, but word will spread. Others will know what happens to those who break my laws in my territory. He pulled back enough to look at her. You were incredible, brave and quick thinking. I'm in awe of you. I stabbed someone. You defended yourself. That's not the same as murder. His thumb brushed across her cheek. I'm sorry you had to do that, but I'm proud of you for surviving. Around them, Theron's people were dealing with the aftermath, burning the bodies, documenting evidence, coordinating with human authorities who were apparently in the know about vampires. Seraphine caught Theron's eye and nodded toward the exit. Take her home, my lord. We'll handle the rest. Home. That word again, meaning his estate. And Vivian found she didn't want to correct it. Theron carried her this time, moving at that impossible speed back through the city. She buried her face in his shoulder, letting the blur of motion and the solid presence of him ground her. When they arrived at the estate, he didn't set her down, just carried her inside and up to the guest room. You need rest, he said, laying her gently on the bed. Stay. She caught his hand. Please, I don't want to be alone. I'll be right outside. No, here, with me. She pulled him down to sit on the edge of the bed. I know it's not proper or whatever, but I don't care. I almost lost you tonight. Could have lost everything. Just stay. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right? He stretched out beside her on top of the covers, and Vivian curled into his side, her head on his chest where a heartbeat should be. His arm came around her, holding her close. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now? Now you're safe. The immediate threat is eliminated. You can go back to your life. Do you want me to? Want has nothing to do with it. You have a life, Vivian. Studies, career plans, dreams. I won't trap you here just because I'm selfish enough to want you to stay. She tilted her head to look at him. What if I want to stay? Don't say that unless you mean it. Don't say it because you're grateful or scared or caught up in the adrenaline of tonight. I'm saying it because in the middle of that fight, all I could think about was whether I'd ever see you again, whether I'd get to kiss you again, whether we'd have time to figure out what this is between us. She reached up, touching his face. I don't want to go back to my old life and pretend this never happened. I don't want to forget you. You won't forget me, and I will never forget you. But Vivian, I'm immortal. You're not. Even if we tried this, you would age and die while I remained unchanged. That's the curse of loving a human. Then change me. He sat up so fast she nearly fell off the bed. What? Change me. Make me like you. Then we'd have time. She sat up too, facing him. I know it's insane. I know I've only known you for days. But I also know that what I feel for you is real, and the idea of walking away and never seeing you again is unbearable. Vivian, you don't understand what you're asking. Becoming a vampire means giving up the sun, giving up human food, needing blood to survive. It means watching everyone you know age and die. It means centuries of potential loneliness if things between us don't work out. Or centuries of potential happiness if they do. She took his hands. I'm not saying do it tonight. I'm saying it's an option I want to consider, that I want you to consider, because I don't want to lose you, Theron, and I don't want you to lose me either. He looked at their joined hands, then back at her face. If I did this, if I agreed to even consider it, there would be conditions. You would need to be absolutely certain. You would need to live as part of my world first, understand what you're giving up and what you're gaining. It's not a decision to make lightly. I know. So let me stay. Let me learn about your world. Give us time to figure this out. She squeezed his hands. What's a few months or even a year to someone who's lived centuries? When I'm with you, even a day feels too long to wait. He pulled her close, kissing her with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Yes, stay. Learn my world. Let me court you properly, the way you deserve. And if, after all that, you still want immortality with me, I'll give it to you. You're going to court me? Is that the old-fashioned vampire way of saying date? It's the old-fashioned way of saying, I intend to win your heart so completely that you'll never want to leave. He smiled, and it transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. I have centuries of romantic experience to draw from. You won't stand a chance. Pretty confident, Your Majesty. I'm the king. Confidence comes with the territory. He pulled her back down beside him, arranging them so she was tucked against his side again. Now rest. Tomorrow we'll start planning your education in vampire society. But tonight, just let me hold you. Vivian closed her eyes, feeling safer and more content than she had in years. Outside, dawn was breaking, but in this room with Theron's arms around her, time felt suspended. Infinite possibilities stretched ahead. She drifted off thinking about art collections and immortality, about blood and beauty, about a vampire king who looked at her like she was precious. When she woke, afternoon sun slanted through the windows, and Theron was gone. But there was a note on the pillow beside her. Had to attend to business. Seraphine will show you the library and the art collection. Tonight, dinner I'll cook for you myself. Tea. Vivian smiled and pressed the note to her chest before getting up to face her new life. The weeks that followed settled into a strange but wonderful rhythm. During the day, Vivian continued her studies remotely, working on her thesis with unprecedented access to Theron's private collection. The paintings he owned were extraordinary lost masterpieces, pieces thought destroyed, works by artists who'd never been recorded in history books because they had been vampires themselves. She spent hours cataloging them, researching them, falling deeper in love with art history and with the man who'd preserved these treasures across centuries. At night, Theron taught her about vampire society, the hierarchies and politics, the different factions and their philosophies, the laws that governed their kind and the consequences for breaking them. He introduced her to his court vampires who'd served him for decades or centuries, who regarded her with curiosity and varying degrees of approval. And always, underlying everything, was the growing connection between them. Theron courted her with a romance that felt pulled from novels and poetry. He took her to the opera in a private box, walked with her through moonlit gardens, read to her from first edition books in languages she didn't understand, translating as he went, cooked elaborate meals he couldn't eat himself just to see her enjoyment. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told her about his human life centuries ago when he'd been a prince in a kingdom long since vanished from maps, about the vampire who'd changed him, giving him immortality when plague threatened his life, about the loneliness of living centuries while everyone he'd known turned to dust. She told him about growing up poor, about fighting for every opportunity, about her love of art and her dreams of maybe teaching someday at a university, about the loneliness of her own life, so focused on achievement that she'd never let anyone get close. We're both lonely, she said one night as they lay together in the gardens, her head on his chest. Maybe that's why this works. We recognize that in each other. I'm not lonely anymore. He ran his fingers through her hair. Not since you. By the time 3 months had passed, Vivian knew her decision was made. She loved him, loved his world despite its dangers, loved the way he looked at her like she was the sun he could never see, loved his honor and his strength and his tenderness. She told him on the anniversary of the night they'd met in the same alley where he'd first saved her life. I want this, she said, standing in the spot where she'd held a pathetic pipe against a vampire. I want you. I want immortality with you. I've never been more certain of anything. Once it's done, it can't be undone, he said seriously. You'll be vampire. You'll need blood. You'll lose the sun. I know. I've studied everything, learned all the risks, and I still want this. She took his hands. Transform me. Make me yours. You've always been mine. He cupped her face. From the moment I saw you standing here, brave and terrified and refusing to give up. But yes, I'll give you this gift. I'll give you eternity. They returned to the estate, to his private chambers, where she'd never been invited before. The room was dark and elegant, all deep colors and rich fabrics. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her between his knees. It will hurt, he warned. The transformation is painful, but I'll be with you through all of it. I trust you. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and she felt his fangs extend slightly against her lips. When he pulled back, his eyes had gone darker, more predatory. Last chance to change your mind. Never. He tilted her head to the side, exposing her throat, and she felt his cool breath against her skin. Then, the sharp pain of fangs sinking deep, and she gasped. It hurt, but there was something else too, a strange pleasure that made her shiver. He drank slowly, deliberately, and she felt her heartbeat slowing, her vision dimming. Just when she thought she might pass out, he pulled back. Now you drink from me. He bit his own wrist and dark blood welled up. Drink deep, Vivian. Drink and be reborn. She pressed her mouth to the wound and drank. His blood was cold and metallic and unlike anything she'd tasted before. Power flooded through her with each swallow, burning through her veins like fire. She drank until he gently pulled his wrist away. Enough. Now the transformation begins. He was right, it hurt. Every cell in her body felt like it was dying and being reborn simultaneously. She curled into a ball on the bed, and Theron wrapped himself around her, holding her through the pain, murmuring reassurances in languages old and new. Time lost meaning. The pain ebbed and flowed, but gradually it began to fade, replaced by something else. Strength, clarity, awareness of every sound in the estate, every heartbeat of the remaining humans, every breath of wind outside. When she finally opened her eyes, the world looked different, sharper, richer. She could see in the darkness as clearly as day, could hear conversations happening floors below, could smell blood and life and death with new acuity. How do you feel? Theron asked, his hand stroking her hair. Different, powerful, strange. She sat up, testing her new strength, and accidentally tore the bedsheet with her grip. Oh, wow. You'll need to learn control, but you're strong, and you learn quickly. We'll work on it together. He touched her face. Look at me. She did, and saw herself reflected in his eyes, paler skin, hair that seemed to catch the light differently, and when she touched her tongue to her teeth, she felt the sharpness of fangs. I'm really a vampire. You really are. He kissed her softly. How do you feel about it? She took stock of herself. The lack of heartbeat that should have been terrifying but felt natural. The absence of need to breathe. The new senses that opened up the world in ways she'd never imagined. I feel perfect, like I was always meant to be this. You were meant to be mine. He pulled her fully into his lap and she wrapped her arms around his neck. My queen, if you'll have me. My partner in all things, my love for as long as forever lasts. Is that a proposal? In my time, we didn't need proposals. But yes, Vivian Zhao. Will you marry me? Will you rule at my side? Will you let me love you for eternity? She kissed him instead of answering with words, pouring everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, she whispered against his lips, yes, to all of it. Yes. He sank his teeth into her throat again, not to transform, but to mark, and she did the same to him, their blood mingling as vampire law recognized their bond. Ancient magic sealed them together, and Vivian felt it like a golden thread connecting her heart to his. Mine, he murmured against her skin. Yours, she agreed, and you're mine. Always. They spent the rest of the night exploring her new abilities, testing her strength and speed, teaching her to control her senses. By dawn, Vivian could move almost as fast as Theron, could hear heartbeats from blocks away, could see every shade and shadow with perfect clarity. And she felt no regret, only joy at the eternity stretching ahead. Over the following months, she learned to hunt ethically, taking blood from willing donors in blood banks and vampire-run clinics, never killing, always respecting the humans who kept them alive. She learned vampire politics and helped Theron strengthen his protection laws. She used her background in art history to help recover stolen works and return them to human museums, ensuring beauty was preserved for all to enjoy. She became his queen in truth, respected by his court, feared by his enemies. And at night, in their private chambers, she was simply Vivian, and he was simply Theron, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. A year after her transformation, they held a formal bonding ceremony in the estate's gardens. Vampires from across the world attended, acknowledging their union. Seraphine stood as Vivian's second, beaming with pride. "I knew from the first night," she whispered to Vivian before the ceremony. "I knew you'd be the one to finally capture his heart." "He captured mine just as thoroughly," Vivian whispered back. The ceremony was beautiful old vampire traditions blended with Vivian's own cultural heritage, creating something unique and meaningful. When Theron took her hands and spoke his vows in a language so old it predated modern civilization, she felt the weight of every word, understood them through their bond. She responded in kind, speaking promises that would last centuries, millennia, forever. When it was done, when they were officially recognized as bound mates by every vampire law and tradition, Theron kissed her, as if sealing a sacred pact. "My queen," he murmured, "my love, my eternity." "My king," she replied, "my protector, my heart." They danced together as their guests celebrated, and Vivian looked around at her new life, at the vampires who'd become family, at the estate that was now truly home, at the man who'd saved her and then let her save him in return. "Any regrets?" Theron asked as they swayed together. "Not a single one." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Though my thesis advisor is very disappointed I never finished my degree." "You have eternity to finish it, though you're now more qualified than most of the professors." He kissed her temple. "We could endow a chair in your name if you'd like. Let you teach the next generation about the art we've preserved. Maybe someday. For now, I'm content being your queen and exploring this new life. For now and always, you're more than a queen. You're my partner, my equal. The other half of my soul I didn't know was missing." He spun her gently. "I love you, Vivian. I love you too, Theron." She smiled up at him. "Thank you for finding me in that alley. Thank you for trusting me enough to stay, for choosing this life, for choosing me. Best decision I ever made." As they continued to dance, surrounded by centuries of vampire tradition and secure in their love for each other, Vivian reflected on how strange life could be. A year ago, she'd been a struggling graduate student tending bar to make ends meet. Now she was an immortal queen, bound to a king who looked at her like she'd hung the stars. She had lost the sun, but gained eternity, lost her mortality, but gained powers beyond imagination, lost her old life, but gained a new one, filled with love and purpose and endless possibility. And when Theron led her away from the celebration to their private chambers, when he made love to her with centuries of skill and infinite tenderness, when he whispered promises against her skin that would last as long as time itself, Vivian knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. She was his, he was hers, and they had forever to explore every moment of it. Years passed, decades. Vivian grew into her power and her role, becoming known throughout the vampire world as a wise and just queen. She and Theron ruled together, strengthening protections for humans, fostering peace between species, eliminating those who would prey on the innocent. They traveled the world, visiting other territories, building alliances. Vivian saw wonders she'd only dreamed of as a human ancient vampire, cities hidden beneath modern ones, courts that predated written history, art and architecture preserved across millennia. But always, they returned home to their estate, to their gardens and their library and their private sanctuary. On the 50th anniversary of the night they met, they stood together in that same alley where it had all begun. The city had changed around them, but the alley remained, and they visited it each year to remember. 50 years, Vivian said, lacing her fingers through his, and I love you more now than I did then. I didn't think it was possible to love anyone the way I love you. Theron pulled her close. But every year, every day, every moment, my love grows deeper. You are my everything, Vivian. And you are mine. She kissed him there in the shadows where their story had begun. Thank you for sinking your teeth into me and marking me as your own, for swearing no other would touch me, for protecting me and loving me and giving me forever. Thank you for being brave enough to accept it. He held her as if she were precious, as if, even after 50 years, he couldn't quite believe she was real. My queen, my love, my eternal companion. They stood together in that alley for a long time, two immortals remembering the night that had changed everything. Then they returned home, to their life and their love and their endless future. And if sometimes Vivienne missed the sun, she had only to look at Theron, at the way he smiled at her, the way his eyes lit up when she entered a room, the way he held her as if she were the most precious thing in all his centuries of existence, to remember that she'd made the right choice. Some people search their entire human lives for love like this and never found it. She'd found it in an alley, in the arms of a vampire king, and she would treasure it for all of eternity. That was more than enough. It was everything. And so Vivienne Zhao, once a struggling graduate student, now an immortal queen, lived happily ever after with the vampire king who'd sworn no other would touch her. They ruled justly, loved deeply, and built a legacy that would endure for as long as vampires walked the night. Their love story became legend among both vampires, and the humans who knew of their existence, proof that even across species, across mortality and immortality, across every barrier and obstacle, true love could not only survive, but thrive. In the end, that was the greatest magic of all. Not transformation or immortality or ancient power, but two souls recognizing each other and choosing every day for eternity to stay together. And they did, forever.